When the demon lord decided to annihilate mankind, a dragon soared through the skies with its master, Haruyoshi. His talismans were able to destroy entire fields and burn cities away, while his dragon alone was one of the 7 ancient deities that ruled the world. But due to his conquest to become the strongest exorcist, the royals and the society began to fear him. His family was burned alive, as he was betrayed by his favorite student, but he knew it was not her fault, since they had taken her family hostage in the process. That said, he vowed that in his next life, he will be more cunning before he activated a self-isekai spell. Under the full moon, his reincarnated body was assessed by his foster father, Blaze, for his magical potential, but the spell collapsed, and his brother Glai was glad that he was useless as fuck. He had reincarnated in a world with a different magical flow, but although his body lacked magical power, it was gifted with vast amounts spiritual power. Every morning, he would gather leaves and use his exorcist arts to transform them into shikami that would give life to mice and crows. At the same time, Glai would bully him for being an ugly bastard child, and even when Seika asked him to stop, Glai would grab him by the collar to punch him. However, the crows began attacking Glai, and when Luft came to force them away, he realized that they completely avoided Seika and began suspecting him. In his new world, they all ignored him for being the child of a mistress, so he spent every day working in the field to prepare paper for creating his talismans. One day, when he heard the knocking on the door, he saw their maid Aoife outside, telling him that she had found his coat in the bushes. Seika knew it must have been Glai, but when he screamed at Aoife to get back to work, he reminded Seika that he would never have a slave, since a magicless loser like him would never be able to enter the Imperial Lodanea Magic Academy. However, Blaze appeared and commanded Glai to get back to his magical lessons. As they walked away, Seika asked his father if he could join them. In the training field, his elder brother Luft launched a vortex that drilled the stone apart, while Glai released a fireball to scorch the stone. Glai was glad that Seika would embarrass himself in front of their father, but as Seika wielded the wand and remembered his vow to hide his power in this life, he realized that the strong always exploited the weak. So he activated his exorcist arts. They were all shocked since no one had ever cast a blue fireball before, so Glai took the credit and told them that his magic must have remained in the wand. However, when Seika asked his father if he could learn magic, Blay told him it was useless to train a talentless mage. For the next 4 years, Seika began learning the world's language while secretly spying on his siblings, yet Blay continued to wonder if he was half demon. By the time Seika turned 11, he remembered the 7 deities he had sealed away, and was finally prepared to summon his least threatening servant into this world. As an ancient door materialized before his eyes, a hot girl emerged, though Seika could not recognize who she was. When she jumped on him, he realized it was definitely the dumb Yuki, but wondered why she was no longer a beautiful woman. Realizing that his spiritual power must be weaker in this young body, she swore she would serve him forever. Seika revealed he was only testing the dimensional gate's abilities in this world, and as he tried sealing her away, she transformed into a small fox, swearing that she would never leave his side again. The following morning, Glai began screaming at Yifa for dropping water on his clothes. As he scolded her, he said he would be willing to forgive her if she came to his room and promised to educate her on what it meant to be a slave. When Seika told Glai to stop abusing her, he tried punching him, but he blocked his attack. Glai stared at him before pulling away, telling him that he was playing with his life. Once he was gone, Seika told Yifa to never go to Glai's room, so she promised that she would not. Then Yifa asked him to follow her outside as she showed him a dying baby Evie. He asked her to turn away to conceal his powers, and after pulling a hair and infusing it with his talisman, the Shikami was sacrificed to heal the Vaporeon. Yifa was shocked that he was able to use magic when he had been born without any mana. When he thought that she might also be hiding a secret ability, she told him it was not like she could see spirits or anything like that. However, he revealed that he was also able to see the spirits, but he suspected that she could see something even greater than him. Wondering what it was, she revealed that he had discovered the secret she always concealed, which is her ability to see the elementals in the world. She explained that it was strange, since every elemental appeared to avoid him. Although he did not know the reason, he realized that she was capable of controlling them, something he was never able to master in his previous life. Realizing he had finally found the person he had been looking for, he asked her if she would like to learn magic. Activating his shikami, he summoned a fireball into the air. She had never tried to use magic before, so she asked the fireball to disappear politely. When it did not listen, she tried begging the fireball to leave. However, she screamed that no one would miss its ugly ass, causing the flame to disappear out of existence. Seika realized that he was lucky to find someone who could dispel magic, and asked her to keep her powers a secret between them. Throughout the weeks, he trained her until she was able to control the flow of her own mana. As the seasons passed, they continued their training together until she was finally able to master the art of dispelling magic. Seika's 12th birthday arrived, but unlike his brothers, he did not receive any presents or a cake, and even his father was not there. Although he had grown used to their mistreatment, Glai called for Seika, saying they would be training him. Because his mother was a mistress, the only path left for his weak body was to join the army. Just then, a maid screamed that a large monster had appeared and was heading directly toward their mansion. Hearing those words, Seika revealed that it was already in their mansion vicinity. As the elder newt destroyed the tree in the close distance, Glai ran away for his pathetic, worthless life, while Luft tried commanding the maids to evacuate to the mansion. He saw that Seika was running in the opposite direction. At the same time, the Eldern was about to devour Yifa, but before Seika could summon his talisman to save her, she activated the elementals and burned the beast away. Once she was safe, he commanded the beast to follow him, and as he leapt into the sky, all of the servants in the mansion began watching him. He then cast a poison spell, and the veins inside the creature's body began absorbing the poison, but he had secretly completed its taming, leaving his brother wondering how he defeated it with a single attack. Everyone believed he was incredibly powerful, so he waved back at them, glad that everything had gone according to his plan. Since his reincarnation into this second life, he would be cunning, and he would finally gain the happiness he desired. Blaze had seen the battle and decided to hold a feast in honor of his bastard foster son. Although the worthless attention angered Glai, Blaze still wanted to reward Seika for defending the mansion. Seika then asked for permission to enroll in the Imperial Laudania Magic Academy. When his father accepted, Seika asked for Yifa to be enrolled as his servant as well, but Blaze thought that she lacked mana, so Seika told Blaze to shut his worthless mouth and just watch. He asked Yifa to cast a massive flame spell while giving her his wand. Because she wanted to stay with Seika her entire life, she awakened all of the flame elementals around. As she spoke the incantation, a massive flame spell erupted outside the window. When Seika asked his father if he was satisfied, Blaze said he would enroll them. However, Glai's ugly ass thought it was unacceptable because in their family tradition, they had never allowed two brothers to follow the same path. His father then declared that he was still going to uphold their traditions, before announcing that the one joining the army would be Glai. He then asked him if he had been improving his magic all these years, because while Seika was training every day, while Glai had been hanging out with a bad crowd. However, Glai would not accept his father's words, so he challenged Seika to a duel, declaring that he would kick him out of their home if he lost. Although Blaze told Seika that he could refuse, Seika accepted the challenge. Their father decided to judge the match on the condition that real swords and mid-rank magic would not be used. Seika was crafting more talismans when Luft visited him, apologizing for being late to wish him a happy birthday, and gave him a glass pen present. He regretted spending his entire lives not being as kind as he should have been, but he was proud to see how much his brother had grown. Then, he asked him to go easy on Glai, as he knew that Seika was stronger than all of them. Under the two moons, Yuki scoffed that Luft's present was worthless, but Seika told her that she was the one who was worthless. However, he realized something was off and commanded her to hide. The window blasted open, and when he looked outside, he saw Glai in the field, screaming that their duel had begun. As they faced off, Glai believed that Seika had only defeated the monster because he was lucky. Wanting to fight him to the death, he abandoned their father's conditions and summoned a magical sigil, casting flame spell to incinerate his brother. He thought his spell was far stronger than that of his worthless slave, but Seika told him it could never be compared to Yifa's flames. Shocked that he was still alive, Glai summoned wind spell to pierce his brother, but a light magic barrier protected him. Seika then took out his talisman as Glai began releasing all of his spells. In that moment, Seika commanded Glai that he was forbidden to move, freezing all of his neurons before twisting the talisman and breaking his arm. However, Seika revealed that Glai was only feeling the pain. When Glai wondered who Seika really was, he decided to accept those words as surrendering. In that moment, he healed his brother's arm, leaving him to collapse onto the ground. As Seika stared at his worthless face, he remembered Glai calling him lucky for defeating the Elder Newt, but he thought it was hilarious. After all, he had been preparing for 6 months to summon his second divine deity, a massive cyclops. Nudo, entered the realm and rushed toward Sika, declaring that he was glad to serve him once more. However, Yuki reminded Nudo that she was the first one he had summoned. Sika then asked the Cyclops to follow his Shikami into the mountain and drive the Elder Newt into their forests. He had purposely lured the Elder Newt toward their mansion so everyone would acknowledge his power, allowing him to attend the Magic Academy instead of Glade. However, Yuki wondered why he was creating such complicated plans, especially when he could take everything he wanted in a world filled with weak humans. Seika then reminded her that those weak humans were the ones who had killed him. In this second life, he desired to become one of them, since his path to absolute power had only cast him away into isolated loneliness. When spring finally arrived, Luft wished for his brother to stay safe. After Aoife yawned, Luft wondered if she had stayed up all night, so Sika revealed that she had been working on something hard in his room all night. As their carriage began pulling away, Sika decided to reward her for studying. She promised that she would treasure it, and he revealed that it would draw the elementals toward her because he wanted her to become the strongest elementalist possible. Looking out the window, he realized they had already reached the Magic Academy and wondered how time had managed to pass so quickly. Back inside his office, Blaze realized that Sika must have arrived already and recalled that stormy night when a mysterious assassin delivered his brother's child to him. But Blaze wondered if his brother had truly died after disappearing into the demon continent. His child was one of the only humans born with black hair and black eyes, so Luft kept his distance, while Glai saw him as an enemy. Blay wondered if he was a demon because he could summon blue fireballs without possessing any magic, and he had used poison on the Elder Newt when no human had ever done so before. Blaze felt guilty for sending Glai to the army, but he realized that if Seika were to witness the horrors of war, he might become the next demon king who eradicates humanity instead of the hero who saves it. Once they arrived at Seika's dorm, he revealed that Aoife's room would be next to his. Those words made her sad, as she thought she could come to his room at night, but he told her that he didn't need a emo girl with unattractive plot. Damn! After hearing that, she ran out crying, and Yuki grew angry that the worthless slave did not know her place. When Sika wondered what she meant, Yuki revealed that Aoife was in love with him and wanted him to use her as a slave to fulfill her fantasies. Hearing those words, Seika realized that he would truly never understand how girls think. Yuki told him to study or he would have a hard time, but he realized that Aoife could make something else hard. At the prestigious Magic Academy, he noticed that a mysterious pool of mana had been accumulating. The examiner, Professor Karen, called for everyone to evaluate their mana levels. When it was Sika's turn, Professor Karen asked him to place his hand on the crystal sphere, explaining that it would shine white if he had aptitude for all elements, although it had never happened before. This was the magical system of the world, where there were 4 primary elements to cast from, but there also existed light and shadow magic, similar to the magic he had invented in his previous life. As Aoife infused her mana into the sphere, Professor Karen discovered that she had an aptitude for wind and fire magic. But when it was Seika's turn, nothing appeared, so Professor Karen thought he might have light or shadow aptitude. However, Seika revealed that he had no magical power, so everyone assumed he was planning to use his connections to enter the Magic Academy. A girl suddenly then screamed at them to shut their mouths, introducing herself as Amyu. As she reached out for the sphere, a white beam of light blinded all the applicants. When she walked away, they realized she had mastered all 4 elements. Sika was shocked to see her because even though her hair was a different color, she was the same person he had known very closely in his past life. That night, Princess Fiona grew worried, and at the same time, the acting demon lord gave a single order to his general, Galeos, to crush the hero. The following day, after Seika finished the written exam, he saw Amyu wielding a sword and wondered how strong she truly was. In the training field, the nerdy examiner, Professor Cordell, announced that they would be evaluating the strength of their elements one by one. All the students summoned their magic, but as Seika watched, he realized they were only able to use a single element and were extremely weak. Next was Aoife's turn, so as she walked toward the stone and activated a flame spell, the fire blast, and it nearly burned the stone away. All the students wondered how she could cast without an incantation, but Aoife revealed that she would be moving on to her next target. Even Seika had no idea what she was planning. She raised her wand and cast a wind spell, and the stone completely disappeared from existence. Seika realized that the stone was not the only thing rock hard. So as Aoife apologized to Sika for destroying the targets, he thought her wind spell was amazing. Aoife revealed that she had been practicing it behind his back, and he cried as her dedication was exactly what a master wished for. Finally, it was Sika's turn, and he summoned his blue fireball to burn the target, shocking all of them. But he continued analyzing and found out that the stone was made of granite, so he decided to combine the elements of earth and metal to cast his crystallization magic that destroyed his target. Even Professor Cordell had never seen a spell like that before. However, Sika apologized, saying his spell was a secret because knew he could never reveal the truth since he was not actually using magic. When he approached the water target, he released an invisible water shikami and infused it with a shadow phase, unleashing a stream of water that froze the entire field. Realizing he had already done enough damage, he decided to stop his exam. Aoife then laughed, as she was so glad that she had the strongest master alive. With the sun setting, Professor Cordell wondered how both of them were able to release the strongest spells in the history of the Magic Academy when they barely possessed any magic. Yet nothing could surprise him anymore, for someone even more powerful had already appeared, someone who had mastered all magic types at a young age. Professor Karen realized she might be the hero, the one destined to be born when the Demon Lord revived. The results of the exam were finally announced, and when Sika searched for their names, Aoife begged him not to abandon her if she failed, but he saw that he was ranked 3rd on the list, while Aoife was ranked even higher than him. He congratulated her, though he was shocked that she had surpassed him in the practical exam. At the very top of the list was Amyu, and C realized she was the one person he had always been searching for. Several days after the announcement, an invitation was sent to all those who had enrolled in the Magic Academy. Aoife wondered if her skirt was too short, but Sika told her it was not because he wanted it to be even shorter.
Yeah, boy.
As they walked toward the entrance ceremony, Sika sensed dark magic coming from behind the bushes. Aoife realized something was off, as she noticed dark elementals hiding inside. After walking deeper into the forest, they found a demonic sigil. Although Aoife thought it was evil, Sika told her to ignore it since it belonged to the school, all while secretly releasing invisible talismans to monitor the area. Inside the hall, when the entrance ceremony began, Amyu walked up to the stage and announced that she would be the representative for the new students. At the same time, the magic circle outside lit up, and Sika sensed monsters drawing closer to the hall. The doors suddenly exploded, and lesser demons appeared before their eyes. The useless students panicked and began running away, but Sika noticed that the demons were searching for someone among them. When one of the demons tried to kill a girl, Amyu had appeared to save her. As she evaded the demon's strike, she launched wind spells across his body and shouted at the disgusting students to get out of her way. However, Sika realized that the demons were too slow and suspected they were being controlled from a distance. Scanning the outside, he found the caster hidden in the forest. He told Aoife to use her magic to run and hide if things became dangerous, then teleported away, leaving his talisman behind. Before long, he began walking toward the demon, reciting a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. Your mom's an ugly gorilla that belongs in the zoo.
Emotional damage.
Enraged and looking to end him immediately, the demon summoned lesser demons from a portal. As he commanded them to attack, Sika cast a spell of gravitational pull, ending the monsters before him. When the last one froze under a protective spell, Sika opened a portal beneath him and sealed him inside another realm. Realizing Sika could use teleportation magic, the demon prepared to fight seriously. He summoned swords from smaller portals and introduced himself as a demon of metal who controlled both fire and earth elements. When Sika attempted to cast a spell, Galeos extinguished it instantly, claiming that none of his spells would work on him. As Sika ignited paper talismans, Galeos shielded himself from the flames, but when he summoned more papers, Galeos burned them instantly. Seeking to eliminate him, Galeos hurled a sword, and though Sika dodged it, the blade slashed his face, and he realized that it had been teleported back. Galeos declared that he could use black teleportation magic. He cast a flame towards Sika, but as Sika leapt away, Galeos materialized behind him and slashed off his arm in that instant. However, as Sika managed to survive the attack, he began wondering why Galeos had been spying on the students through the eyes of the lesser demons. Galeos revealed that he was searching for the hero to fulfill the divine prophecy of the reincarnation of the Demon Lord. He went on to say that he had already found her, but realizing who he was aiming for, Sika moved. But Galeos launched a dozen swords to eliminate him. Sika evaded them and leapt over another, yet Galeos's double blades sliced him at the same time. With one strike, Galeos sent him to the afterlife. Believing Sika to be dead, Galeos turned away, preparing to search for Amyu. But the sound of Sika's voice, reciting ancient incantations, drew his attention back. He spotted him balanced on top of a blade. Wondering how he was still alive, Galeos hurled a sword into his skull, only for it to disintegrate. Seika revealed that he had resurrected himself, explaining that he had already set a spell to eliminate anything that did not belong to his body. Even so, Galeos believed he could end him regardless, so he summoned 100 swords, vowing to annihilate the hero once Seika was dead. Hearing those words, Seika scoffed that Galeos was a fool and declared that true strength could only be defined by the powerful allies one has. Galeos dismissed his words, claiming that only the weak depended on allies. He tried to end him, but Seika evaded the storm of blades and cast a spell that unleashed a massive waterfall. By the time the waters crashed down, Galeos had already teleported away. However, when Galeos tried attacking from above, Seika had already anticipated the strike. He summoned Raiju, a ferret-like deity that struck the demon with lightning. Yet by the time the smoke cleared, Seika realized that Galeos was nowhere in sight until he stabbed him from behind without warning. But it was all part of Seika's plan, for his body suddenly exploded before Galeos' eyes. Though the demon managed to survive, he began oozing with a red aura, confident that Seika would soon run out of talismans. He prepared to end the fight, but Seika revealed more than 1,000 talismans, explaining that he had spent his entire life creating them, so he would be ready for any battle. Casting the dimensional gate, he summoned Mizuchi, and a dozen portals opened as a dragon emerged, its massive form filling the sky. It lunged at Galeos, attempting to devour him, before ascending toward the moon and consuming his body entirely. At the sight of this, Seika was relieved that the demon had been eliminated. Yet when he attempted to return the dragon to the other realm, it resisted and tried to escape. Realizing it was heading toward the school, he quickly set his talismans on it, redirecting its path before sealing it back inside the realm. Still, he wondered how a weak deity like Mizuchi had been able to break free. The answer soon came to him, as his young body was still too weak, so he would need to grow stronger and older before he could properly command the remaining 4 deities. Just then, Yuki jumped on his body, revealing that she had been hiding the entire time. She scolded him, thinking it was reckless that he had allowed himself to be killed. However, Seika revealed that it was all part of his plan, as he could already use his Shikigami to resurrect himself from the dead multiple times instantly. By the time he returned to the hall, he realized that all the students had been injured, but Ifa told him that Amyu had killed all the lesser demons. Hearing these words, Seika realized that Amyu was the perfect person he needed as an ally. After all, he could remain hidden while using her to advance with his plans. Although he needed to become her friend, he admitted to himself that he would not be sad if she lost her life in the end, as long as it secured his happiness. In that moment, he vowed to make her the strongest person in the world, even if it meant defeating the Demon King himself. A month had passed since Seika began attending the Magic Academy with Ifa. When he saw Amyu and tried to greet her, she coldly told him to do humanity a favor by ending his miserable life. A few minutes later, a clay jar appeared above them, and just as it spilled, Seika teleported them away. However, he walked back because he sensed something was off. At that moment, Professor Cordell appeared at the window and apologized for the accident. After recovering the liquid, Professor Cordell explained that it was a catalyst for his research, but when Seika asked what the clay jar was meant for, he revealed that he was trying to levitate it to the 3rd floor. Seika, however, knew that only dark magic could manipulate gravity, which made him wonder what Professor Cordell was hiding. Later, during class, Professor Karen announced that the school's anniversary was approaching. He asked Amyu and Ifa to deliver the new student roster as an offering on the day of the anniversary. When Seika heard this, he realized they would be traveling close to Galeo's magical circle, so he requested to take Ifa's place and ordered her to refuse her mission. When she obeyed, Professor Karen reluctantly agreed to Seika's proposition. That evening, while walking away from the school, Seika decided to tell Ifa that Amyu was actually in danger. He explained that he had taken her place so he could protect her. Her battle with the demons had made her a target, and he revealed that he intended to watch her back. Ifa then wondered if he was interested in Amyu because she was pretty and slim with red hair, but Seika revealed that it was Amyu's strength he was after, and that he only wished to become her friend. Hearing those words, Ifa swore that she too could grow stronger, but Seika wished that she would help him instead, as Amyu's power must have isolated her throughout her life. On the day of the school ceremony, Professor Karen handed them the roster. As they made their way into the forest, Amyu demanded to know why Seika had volunteered to replace Ifa. He told her that he wanted to be her friend, and that he wished to have a long conversation with her. However, Amu believed she could not satisfy him, especially since he already had a slave with massive milkers. But he told her that she was wrong and that she was exactly what he would look for on a beach, because she was as flat as a surfboard. As she thought he was an ugly creep, her mind was shocked in that instant. At the same time, Seika sensed the presence of a dark spell and moved toward its source. Just then, they came across a magic circle, and at that moment, a portal opened, instantly teleporting them. They were transported into a dungeon, where a group of lizard creatures appeared before them, and without hesitation, Amu charged at them. As she leapt to the other side, she unleashed a fireball that completely obliterated them. However, when an orc appeared behind her and was about to end her life, Seika cast a spell that crushed its head with a spike. As they began searching for the exit, Seika cast a new spell to light their way, and Amu was shocked to discover that he could also use light magic. At the same time, he was casting talisman signals to guide his Shikigami on the outside so they could detect their location. Suddenly, a group of goblins rushed at them, but Amu cut them down with swift strikes. As she managed to block an attack, she slashed a monster's arm off, but before she realized it, the creature returned to finish her off and smacked her into the wall. However, as the monsters prepared to terminate her, Seika cast a wood spell that impaled them with stakes. At that moment, Amu lost consciousness, and the remaining goblins charged towards Seika. He realized he could finally use his true powers, so he summoned Omukade from the divine gates of hell and eliminated all the goblins before him. By the time Amu woke up, she saw that all the monsters had been slain. Noticing that her head was still hurting, Seika cast a light barrier around them and realized she was under a curse, since the pain disappeared after the barrier was formed. When she believed there were no curse sigils on her body, she asked him to check her back before removing her clothes and found nothing. Seika then revealed that he had wanted her to take off her clothes, since he already had another solution prepared. With a strand of her hair, he transferred the curse onto one of his talismans, telling her that it would now serve as her substitute. They sat together for hours, but during that time, Amu wondered if Seika had kissed Aoife or even developed a plot with her yet. When Seika told her that he had not kissed Aoife, Amu thought he was lame, since shy girls like her were always freaky. He then reminded her that she had just taken her clothes off in a dungeon. After he had been knocked unconscious, they continued eliminating all the goblins until they finally reached the boss's chamber. As the Naga prepared to face them, Seika activated his stone magic and released impaling stakes, but the creature nearly burned his face off with acid. Seika managed to evade, and Amu countered with a wind lance, but the spell failed to pierce the monster's thick scales. Before it could retaliate, Seika summoned a spear that nailed the creature into the ground. Amu immediately ignited it with a fireball, and the moment the fire erupted, Amu descended upon the Naga and stabbed its body, killing it instantly. As Seika ran toward her, Amu leapt onto him, revealing that it was the first time she had ever defeated a dungeon boss. When Yuki asked Seika why he had not teleported out the entire time, he revealed that he wanted to have fun with Amu and give her battle experience so she could someday become the strongest. Before long, they came across a mithril sword, so Seika pulled it out of the monster, causing the creature to disintegrate before their eyes. As he handed the sword to Amu, he noticed a ring on the ground and realized it was infused with magic. When Amu asked him what he would do when he got older, he promised that he would go adventuring with her again. Hearing this, she grew happy and told him that it was a promise. After escaping the dungeon, Seika informed Professor Karen about the secret labyrinth hidden beneath the school, but concealed both the existence of Amu's curse and the true source of his own magic. That night, when Seika arrived at Professor Cordell's lab, he revealed that he had already uncovered his plan and mentioned that Amu had begun to recover. Realizing that he had been exposed, Professor Cordell wondered how Seika had discovered his secret. Seika explained that it was impossible for demons to have drawn a magical circle within the school, and since Professor Cordell had the ugliest face among all the instructors, he had suspected him immediately. Deciding to reveal the truth, Professor Cordell removed his disguise and admitted that he was a spy for the demons. He explained that the potion inside the pot was actually a revolutionary curse capable of killing anyone as if it were an ordinary illness. Professor Cordell revealed that his true target was the hero, but Seika dismissed him as a fool and displayed his talisman, showing that he had already removed the curse from Amu. As Professor Cordell summoned a demon, Seika spilled its blood onto his own body and declared that he had discovered the curse's condition. Now drenched in demon blood, he began casting a spell to transfer the curse back onto its creator. This was the power he carried over from his previous life as the cursed exorcist. He told Professor Cordell that those who curse others dig 2 graves. As Professor Cordell's organs began to rupture, Sika revealed that he was the only one in this world who knew how to dispel curses, making it unlucky for the demons to have encountered him in this lifetime. While walking upstairs, Aoife asked how he had known it was Professor Cordell, so Seika explained that his Shikigami had detected the same pollen both on Professor Cordell's body and within the demonic circle. Later that day, when Seika handed the magical ring to Aoife, she noticed that elementals were drawn toward it. At that moment, Seika saw Amyu passing by, and when he tried calling out to her, she told him to jump off a cliff, and Isekai himself already. As Seika wondered if his face was truly that ugly, Amyu turned to thank Aoife for helping her study, leaving Seika to question when those worthless chicks had even become friends. 1 year later, as they celebrated their sophomore year, the headmaster's right hand appeared before Seika and his servant, informing them that the headmaster wished to see them immediately. Though Seika had a bad feeling about the headmaster's summons, he noticed a girl spying on them from the shadows. The following day, when they entered the headmaster's office, she welcomed them inside. Studying Seika's features, she remarked that he looked just like his uncle. This left Seika wondering why his father had never mentioned having a brother. Without explaining further, the headmaster shifted the topic and asked him to participate in the mixed discipline tournament in the capital, a prestigious competition between mages and swordsmen. She believed he could serve as one of the Magic Academy's representatives. To support this, she summoned a new girl into the office. As she stepped forward, she introduced herself as Mabel, someone Seika had never seen before. Before he could process this, Amyu burst out in frustration, complaining about not being invited and demanding to know if Seika would attend. Still remembering Mabel's face, Seika turned his attention back to her and admitted he was curious about something in the tournament. As they were leaving the school, Amyu remarked that Mabel must have been chosen by a noble family and that probably had never experienced hardship in her life. To their surprise, Mabel appeared right behind them and told Amyu that she was the one who had never truly faced hardship. While Amyu was glad to finally meet her replacement, Mabel explained that she was never going to be selected in the first place since she was too weak to fight. Hearing this, Amyu grew irritated and ordered 2 morons to hand over their practice swords, challenging Mabel to a duel to see who the real weakling was. Mabel accepted without hesitation, and the moment she picked up the sword and assumed her stance, Seika immediately recognized her skill, realizing she was just as experienced as Amyu. Eager to evaluate her strength, he declared the start of the fight. Amyu charged forward with full force, but Mabel blocked her strike with dark magic, and the 2 clashed swords fiercely. With one decisive move, Mabel knocked Amyu's bent sword from her hand, easily winning the spar. As Mabel turned to leave, she told Amyu that she was useless for someone destined to be the hero. When Amyu tried to protest, saying they were not supposed to use magic, Mabel dismissed her words, stating that excuses would only make her weaker. Right then, Mabel warned Seika that he was going to get hurt in the tournament. He thanked her for her words before she walked away. The following day, the group set off for the capital to attend the tournament. Along the way, Seika silently cursed his misfortune, wondering why he had to be stuck with Aoife and Amyu's disgusting faces. Aoife quickly reminded him that she was his servant and had to remain by his side at all times. Amyu, on the other hand, claimed that she had never been to the capital before and wanted to see it. But Seika knew she was lying, realizing her only real desire was to watch Mabel compete in the tournament. When he asked Amyu where she planned to sleep, she replied that she would stay in Aoife's bed. Mabel, watching their antics, thought they were all pathetic because despite being the same age, they acted like children who lacked any seriousness. But Aoife then revealed that she was actually a year older than them, which left Amyu shocked. After thinking about it, however, Amyu admitted that it explained Aoife's massive personality. By the time they reached the capital, the girls noticed that Seika had become carriage sick. To make matters stranger, they discovered that Mabel had slipped away from the group. Before long, they arrived at the registration board, where Seika decided to investigate why the academy had chosen him as a representative instead of Amyu. The following day, as the tournament was about to begin, Seika examined his amulet and realized it was designed to absorb magical attacks, though it would shatter if it absorbed too many. Just then, the announcer introduced Seika as the first participant, and his opponent, Dennis, a fighter from the Garl's mercenary band, boldly declared that this would be Seika's last day alive. Seika, however, brushed him off, claiming he had a headache and felt tired. And when the mercenary assumed he was only making excuses, Seika calmly declared to end the fight in a single second. Enraged by his words, Dennis charged forward the moment the round began and stabbed him. Yet instead of landing a fatal blow, the blade pierced a talisman. Seika then dragon instantly materialize behind him and blast him into the wall. As the crowd gasped in shock, the announcer declared Sika the winner. While he was walking through the tunnel, Yuki intercepted him and urged him to purposely lose his next match, fearing he was already drawing far too much attention to himself. But when Seika rejoined the girls, the second round of the tournament began as Bellum from the Sage stepped into the arena to face his opponent, Kyle, a guard from the Rugrock Merchant Association. As the match started, Kyle immediately cast a spell that froze his enemy in place, and with the sorcerer unable to move, the crowd could only wonder why Belem stood motionless. Then, Kyle closed the distance and pierced him, making Belem the first fatality of the tournament. As Kyle turned to leave, Sika studied his expression closely, and from the look in his eyes, he recognized him as a seasoned killer with a dark history that should have made him a wanted criminal. He began to suspect that Kyle had been deliberately sent to compete in the tournament. On top of that, Sika had already discerned that Kyle was a caster, and one of the rare few capable of channeling spiritual power into their gaze, cursing their opponent through the power of an evil eye. When it was time for the second round, the announcer summoned Seika into the arena, but when his opponent arrived, he discovered it was just a puppet controlled by Labinate, a puppeteer mage. She told Seika that she created it for anti-magic combat and that Seika had no chance of winning. However, as the match began, Seika summoned an invisible that slashed the golem with quick strikes, causing it to fall apart. The announcer thought Seika managed to tear it apart with his wind magic. But when Sika threatened to obliterate her out of existence, she surrendered immediately. As Sika began walking down the tunnel, he was relieved that his trick wasn't discovered. He told Yuki that he could be disqualified for summoning a monster into the arena, since incarnating beasts was forbidden. By the time he rejoined the girls, the new round was about to begin, and Sika noticed Mabel facing off with her opponent. His name was Howlo, the Earth Mage, and he thought he would easily crush Mabel with his earth powers. As the fight began, Howlo launched a rock blast towards her, but she sliced it easily. Shocked at the sight, the loser continued launching rock blasts, but Mabel sliced everything. As she began walking closer to him, Howlo realized he was screwed and started casting a stone wall for defense, supporting it with another spell, but Mabel hurled daggers into it, shattering it instantly. Unwilling to surrender, the loser summoned half a dozen walls to keep her away, but Mabel destroyed them in an instant, and Sika thought she was using gravity magic. At the same time, Howlo began running away, but as Mabel rushed towards him, she sliced his staff, and the man's life was already flashing before his eyes. Having no other choice, he decided to surrender, and the announcer declared her to be the winner, calling her the Mabel, the red-haired hero. But as Sika heard those words, he began wondering how Mabel became known as the hero. So Aoife revealed that the second hero in history was called Mabel, and that this Mabel also happened to wield her sword. Although it seemed like a good cover story, Sika knew she was hiding something and wanted to discover her secrets. At dawn, a loser was preparing a message for the demons, but as he sent off the pigeon, a larger bird captured it. And at that moment, Seika appeared telling him he had already discovered that he was a spy for the demons, and that he had successfully trailed him here. However, when Seika demanded to know what was inside the message, the man told him to get lost, and began to leave. But as he thought Seika was defenseless, he tried to end his life, so Seika cast a spell, restraining him with binding vines. Realizing Seika had already discovered the secret, the loser began wondering how he found him. Seika revealed that he had spied on him through the eyes of an owl and demanded to know who he was spying on. When the loser refused to answer, Seika revealed that he would interrogate his soul. As he summoned Satori, the fifth deity from the heavenly gates of hell, it began to read his mind, giving him nightmare fuel by revealing every single thought he had. Just as Seika was asking the questions, Satori revealed that he was after the hero Mabel Crane. She was born at the same time as the ancient prophecies, and she happened to be a female with red hair who was the strongest wielder of the sword in their academy. With Seika having already learned everything he wished to know, he decided to release the ugly loser, but told Satori to eat him as a reward. At that moment, Satori devoured him, but when she was done, the menace began reading Seika's own mind, as he felt bad for killing an innocent man. However, Seika grew angry and threatened to kill her where Satori stood, so as he decided to summon the portal, Satori returned quickly. With the coast clear, Seika called for his bird, and as it retrieved the message, he decided to open it. However, it was written in an unusual code, and Seika wished he had asked how he could decode the message. Luckily, he had already discovered the Magic Academy's true motive of trying to make Mabel win, so the demons would be convinced she was the true hero, forgetting about Amu's existence. When Yuki wondered if he had discovered why the headmaster chose him for the second slot, Seika revealed that he would figure out the entire truth in a matter of time. The following day, when the semifinals were about to begin, Mabel confronted Seika in the tunnel and told him to forfeit, saying that the tournament was nothing close to what he thought it was. Unwilling to allow her to decide his future, Seika told her that he would not forfeit the round. She then told him that she was not willing to lose to him and was even willing to kill him, but even so, Seika would not heed her words. When it was time for the first round of the semifinals, the first mage appeared in the arena. When Kyle arrived as his opponent, Reinus, the four-element master, cast a light spell to protect himself from Kyle's vile eye, but the menace began to approach him. Desperate to keep him away, Reinus launched a fireball towards him, but Kyle was unscathed and continued walking anyway. With Reinus scared for his life, he began launching more fireballs and blasted him with every single element. But with Kyle still completely unscathed, Seika realized that Kyle was using gravity magic to repel all his attacks. Just then, Reinus summoned an army of golems, but Kyle cast a purple shadow that pierced them at the same time, shattering them to pieces. As Reinus thought he could end him, he began rushing at Kyle, but Kyle managed to restrain him with his shadow. When Kyle raised his sword to end his life, a whistle went off, and the announcer revealed that the judges had called off the fight, declaring Kyle the winner. That night, while Seika began wondering if he should forfeit his match the next day, he noticed that Yuki was snuggling close to his body, and she asked if she could shove the Excalibur down her throat.
What do you mean by that?
However, Seika's owl spotted Mabel on his roof, and as he dived out of the way, the roof collapsed onto his bed. Through the smoke, he spotted Mabel on the other side, and wondered why her ugly face was caught blocking him. Without an answer, she hurled a knife at the wall and immediately tackled him out of the window. He managed to kick her off, creating a distance between them. But as she hurled another knife at him, Seika managed to dodge it. At that moment, he tried to restrain her, but when she sliced the vine and stabbed his body, he disappeared before her eyes. To blast her away, he cast a spell of internal release, but she managed to remain in balance. As Seika thought about how strong she was, he realized he could not allow her to escape. At that moment, an ugly loser appeared in the alley, wondering why they were making noise. But as Mabel nearly ended his life, Seika discovered she had escaped. However, he had already made up his mind for the next round of the tournament and thought he must find her before dawn. Before long, he found her at a fountain but told her that he did not come to fight. When she wondered why he came, he told her that he intended to speak with her and told her she could still persuade him to forfeit the fight. But he also told her that he had already discovered that she intended to die in Amu's place. She had been drawing the demons away from Amu as the fake hero and thought that through her death, they would believe the hero was truly dead. However, Mabel revealed she was also hoping to eliminate Kyle, confessing that they were trained by the Rug Rock Merchant Association, who turned slave children into mercenaries. Their association had created this tournament to test Kyle's ability as a perfect mercenary. They had opened a hole inside his skull to implant magic into his brain, taking away every form of his emotions. Before this process, the slave children were put into groups of 4 and trained together until they formed a special bond. However, only one of them would be made into a mercenary, and only after eliminating the others would he be considered a perfect mercenary. With Mabel being the last survivor after Kyle, she thought it was her duty to end him in the finals, seeing as he had already killed her brother. But after hearing those words, Seika thought she was not only flat, but also a liar. He knew that Kyle was actually her brother, and that her red hair was only a disguise to convince everyone that she was the hero. Realizing he had discovered everything, she decided to reveal the truth and said she intended to kill Kyle to free his soul. However, Seika thought she was too weak to do so and said he would defeat Kyle in the finals. As she began thinking it was not possible, he told her that he was the strongest man in their world and believed that Kyle's only desire was to see her free from the association. The following day, when it was time for their round, he told her to give it her best shot. She, however, thought he was just a useless noble kid who had been spoiled his entire life. As she flashed behind him, she nearly slashed him in half, and as she destroyed the rubble, She sliced him apart only to realize it was a piece of paper. As he launched rocks that she evaded, Mabel shot her knives towards him, but he blocked them with a barrier. As the dust settled, he unleashed binding vines to restrain her, but she charged forward until Sika activated his falling fruit spell. When he cast a spell of chemical binding vines, they restrained her again, and this time she realized she could not break free. Deciding to lift her axe, he then cast a floating spell, and as he pretended to end her life, the whistle went off as the judges ended the round, declaring him the winner. When it was time for the final round, Sika and Kyle faced off, and as Sika began saying that Mabel was still alive, Kyle told him that he would kill her after their tournament. Even though he remembered that she was his sister, he had completely lost every emotion for her, so Sika vowed to make him apologize to Mabel. As the round began, Sika cast red mist all around the arena floor, rendering Kyle's evil eye useless. When Kyle began walking towards him, Sika blasted him with ghostlight, but Kyle remained unscathed. Sika then summoned chemical binding vines to restrain him, but the purple shadow destroyed them instantly. Kyle cast his shadow towards Sika, but his barrier repelled it. Sika thought their fight was useless, so the divine gates of hell appeared before Kyle's eyes. At that moment, he summoned Ushioni, the fifth deity. As the monster emerged from the dimension, Kyle's shadows tried piercing its body, but its skin was stronger than steel. The beast bashed Kyle's face, knocking him unconscious, so Sika thought Kyle had lost because he was never able to recognize his own limits. But as a seal began spreading across Kyle's body, the curse started eating away at him, even inside the barrier. Sika wondered how he could save him, but Kyle stopped him and asked him to apologize to Mabel on his behalf. Sika grew angry at the thought of being bested by a curse, so he summoned 1,000 talismans at the same time. Looking to neutralize the curse, he prepared to cast a spell that would remove it from Kyle's body and even revive him from the dead. But as a beacon pierced the heavens, Yuki told him that it was dangerous to use his ultimate spell, since everyone in the arena would discover his secret powers. This mistake had cost him his previous life. And as the memories returned to his mind, Sika decided to stop the spell. By the time the fight was over, Kyle had mysteriously disappeared, and Sika told everyone that he destroyed him without a single trace. After the tournament, however, he buried Kyle outside the capital, allowing Mabel to pay her last respects. She told him that she already knew her brother was cursed. The following day at their academy, Sika visited the headmaster's office and revealed that he had saved Mabel just as she hoped. She then realized that he had already discovered everything. She explained that it was all part of the association's plans from the very start, as the only purpose of the tournament was to test Kyle's ability as a mercenary. Afterward, Sika arrived at the cafeteria and noticed that Mabel had dyed her hair purple, but he thought she somehow looked even uglier now. Even so, when he wondered why she had not visited him the previous night, she told him that he was drilling her too hard and that she wanted to practice feeling his sword, striking her body more slowly.
Sensational.
As Seika told her that it was her best hope of passing the exams, she complained that her body was already sore and asked Yifa to try to talk to him. However, Yifa thought Sika should pound his lessons even harder into her, and Mabel realized she was screwed. A few weeks later, with their summer break drawing close, Sika revealed that he was heading to the kingdom of Asteria to investigate a rogue dragon. Just then, an ugly loser entered the cafeteria. And as he began bragging that he could buy all these broke wages, Amyu wondered who this ugly moron was. Right then, he noticed Sika at his table and decided to introduce himself as Cecilio, the crown prince of Asteria. As Sika heard these words, he welcomed him to the academy. But then, Cecilio noticed Aoife and thought she was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. He decided to use his best riz, asking if her legs were a rope because he wanted to strangle himself in between them. However, Aoife revealed that she was a slave and was Seika's servant. Cecilio told her to make her his coffin because he would love to be inside of her.
Out of pocket for that shit.
Cecilio then told Seika to name her price, but his assistant Liz quickly told him that he was embarrassing himself in front of the others. In a private room, Cecilio told Seika the rogue dragon had lived peacefully for a century, but was now attacking the castle, and the situation worsened by the day. Just then, he noticed Aoife's massive cannons and began suggesting they have dinner together, but Liz told him to restrain himself. As Seika left later that day, Amy dragged him into the bushes and demanded answers. When he admitted he would give Aoife to Cecilio's harem if she agreed, the girls found him pathetic. Knowing Aoife's feelings for him, Mabel warned him to never to ask her such a thing, fearing it would only hurt her. A few days later on the road to Asteria, Aoife told Sika that Cecilio had asked her to ride his dragon. though she doubted he wanted her in his harem. Sika insisted he was serious, but wondered what awful feeling brewing inside of him was. Upon reaching Asteria, Yuki admired the view until Cecilio arrived, lamenting the kingdom's decline since the dragon's rampage. As the beast flew overhead, a man summoned a lava tiger that lunged at it and missed. Then he turned on Yuki, so Seika stopped the menace with ice crystals, but the tiger's blazing armor melted them easily. As the tiger leapt towards Sika instead, a magical chain restrained it, and its summoner, Zekt, appeared at that moment. When Sika asked who the ugly addict was, Cecilio revealed he was the mercenary leader hired to slay the dragon. Sika doubted hiring someone who looked ready to overdose, but Zekt boasted of slaying dragons and surviving 7 cycles of rehab. Sika mocked his ruined face until Cecilio broke it up and ordered Zekt to leave. Once he left, Seika turned on Yifa, and as she tried to thank him, he scolded at her for not using magic, wondering what she would have done without him and if bringing her was a mistake. As Yuki cried, Cecilio tried to riz her, but Seika stopped him from doing so before ordering Yifa to use magic next time, since hesitation could cost her life. Seika left and regretted his harsh words, yet hoped she would learn because in his past life, he had frozen while his student was devoured by his dragon, sealing it only afterward. Fearing history would repeat with Yuki, he chose harshness to protect her. The next day, they read about the dragon and learned it once lived with a mate on the mountain but began attacking after hatching young. Sika suspected the same scenario, though records claimed only the male survived. Yifa asked how it could hatch offspring alone, so Seika resolved to climb the mountain for answers despite Yifa's warning it would kill him. That night, Yifa came to his room, telling him that Cecilio had invited her to polish his sword, so Seika offered her to stay the night with him instead. When he asked if she'd join Cecilio's harem, she refused and questioned why he asked. Believing he didn't think her worthy, she vowed to do whatever he wanted, but Seika told her that joining a royal harem was the greatest honor most girls wished for. When she wondered if he was okay with her leaving him, Seika revealed that he would be upset at first, but would be happy that she chose her own path. Hearing those words, she told him that she would sleep while she stayed crying all throughout the night. The following morning, he noticed that she was gone, and even Yuki felt bad for how worthless he was, because Yifa was actually in love with him. But Seika thought it was only a crush, but Yuki told him it was more than that, and wished he would realize it before it was too late. As he met Cecilio during his tea time, he told him that he was going up the mountain to find the dragon. As Cecilio heard these words, he realized it would take Seika a few days to return, and thought he would have enough time to persuade Yifa. But Seika could already guess his thoughts, and hoped he would stay far away from her. Later that day, as Lise appeared before Yifa and asked to speak with her in private, she told her that she had already sensed her magic and revealed that she was a descendant of elves. She explained that the elementals must have led her to them and asked her to join Cecilio's harem, since she couldn't continue to be Sika's slave forever, as he was a demon after all. This was the reason why the elementals would not draw closer to him, just as they would avoid any other demon. However, Yifa was certain that Sika could not possibly be a demon, and began telling her that they grew up together. But Lizzie thought one of his parents must have been a demon, so she told Yuki to run away from him and offered to show her around the mansion. Meanwhile, Seika had arrived at the top of the mountain, and as the dragon noticed him, it launched its fire breath, but Seika's barrier protected him from the attack. When the dragon charged at him, he disappeared at that instant, and as he summoned the 6th deity, Kokyu Kanaki, an ugly stone monster landed on top of the beast. It released a high-pitched frequency that weakened the dragon before returning into the gates of hell. When the dragon began to recover, Seika successfully trapped the beast, and as he arrived inside the nest, he realized the dragon was protecting an egg, so he decided to move the egg. Having learned that each end of the egg must point toward the sky, he realized that the legend of the Asteria princess who hatched a dragon egg must have been true. At Cecilio's mansion, Lise continued showing Yifa around, telling her that she would be treated better than the others if she managed to become Cecilio's top-rated wife. On top of that, she would be allowed to participate in the government and would even become a powerful official, but Yifa's only desire was to stay at Sika's side. Seika had grown exhausted from moving the dragon egg, and even the dragon had decided to make him the egg keeper. However, Seika was glad that the dragon was no longer out of control, and as it drew him closer, he realized that it was growing attached to him. At the mansion, as Yifa came across Cecilio, he began wondering if she was finally willing to join his harem, hoping Lise had successfully persuaded her. Right then, one of his men began to draft a price for her liberation tax, and Cecilio revealed that he was preparing paperwork for her freedom. Once the contract was completed, she would be free to make her own decisions, and Cecilio said he was willing to buy her freedom for any price. Afraid of being separated from Seika, Aoife told him that she was willing to live as a slave forever, but Cecilio thought she was simply confused and told her that he would definitely buy her off. He was convinced that Seika was dangerous and said he could not allow her to remain with the menace. However, Aoife thought he was the menace and declared that she wished to stay with Seika forever. Even so, the men thought completing her slave contract was more important. His words made Aoife realize she was surrounded by a bunch of mentally ill morons. As the guards seized her immediately, Lies threatened to end her life if she tried to use magic. Realizing they had been sealed inside a barrier, Lies launched a wind lance past her body, nicking her thumb. As she tried to force her hand on the contract, the dragon broke the barrier at that instant. Just then, Seika appeared from the dragon's head, and Aoife was glad that her savior had arrived. Seika revealed that he had managed to befriend the beast. While everyone was still shocked, he continued by saying that the dragon would no longer attack their kingdom, but Cecilio must keep the dragon egg warm. With Yuki able to use fire magic, Seika thought she could keep the egg warm, and called her to join him on the dragon. When Lise tried telling her to return, Aoife declared that Seika was the love of her life. So as they rode away on the dragon, Aoife wished she could ride something else. But when Seika asked her what she meant by that, she told him that she did not say anything.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
After arriving on top of the mountain, Aoife noticed the dragon egg, but as the ugly summoner called forth the lava tiger, it tried to devour them, yet Seika trapped it using ice crystals. At that moment, Zekt and his team of losers appeared, and as Seika realized they had been trying to steal the dragon egg, Zekt vowed to kill him so that he could protect his secret. As the tiger melted through the fortress and rushed toward them, a tall fountain blew it away, and Seika realized it was Aoife's magic. She had managed to awaken the magic inside her ring, and told Zekt that she was about to send him back to rehab. Desperate to eliminate them, Zekt directed the tiger to attack again before commanding his men to follow for support. With Seika completely unfazed, he cast a spell of white flames, obliterating the tiger instantly. But when Zekt tried commanding the men to attack, the dragon appeared before their eyes. The sight scared the life out of them, and they began running away. However, Seika captured them with binding vines, and Aoife burned Zekt's spellbook. After she neutralized him, Seika said that he was glad she had become stronger and thought she was amazing for learning water magic. A few hours later, after they returned to the mansion, Seika explained everything that had happened. Cecilio decided to send the men to prison, but as he wondered how Seika had made peace with the dragon, Seika revealed that he helped it to raise its egg and believed the legend about the queen was true. Her desire to hatch the dragon egg had made the dragon take her as family and protect the kingdom for centuries. Suddenly, Cecilio told his knights to arrest Seika, saying he was responsible for making the dragon go rogue. Seika agreed to follow the knights, but when Cecilio began telling Aoife that she was finally free and could now become his woman, Seika smacked his hand away, having had enough of his BS. Seika told him that he had only gone along with his arrest because of their useless politics, but realized Cecilio had only been after Aoife this entire time. He called him a spoiled little kid and told him he could never give Aoife away. At that moment, Lisa realized she had seen enough and asked to know Aoife's own feelings. Without hesitation, Aoife told Cecilio that she wanted to stay by Seika's side forever, because even if she was no longer his slave, she would never join his useless royal harem. After he was rejected, Lise told Cecilio that his haircut was the reason, and as she thanked Seika for taming the dragon, she asked to speak with Aoife in private. Inside a different room, Lise realized that Yuki was in love with him, so she asked for her hand, giving her the ability to tame the light element. She thought Aoife was just like the elven princess in the legends, and believed that Seika would recognize her love for him one day. Meanwhile, in a forest, a group of sorcerers were eliminating monsters. As the leader appeared before a random man, he asked to know where the hero was. However, a huge monster appeared at that moment, and the man was glad he had managed to summon the one-eyed monster with the last ounce of his magic. As the leader drew his sword, the giant slammed him with its axe, but it snapped in half. Looking to eliminate it, the leader flashed forward, and as he repelled the monster's attack with a dispel circle, he slayed it instantly. When he returned to the man, he commanded his comrades to devour him and hoped to find the hero soon. Back at the Magic Academy, Seika asked Amyu to meet his family during spring break, and also invited Mabel as a third wheel. Then, as he prepared to leave, he felt no eagerness to return, dreading the useless guest in their mansion. He feared his presence alone might draw attention and cost him his life once more. The next day at Seika's mansion, Luft greeted them, and Seika thought he looked less ugly than before. Suddenly, Glai appeared in armor, shouting Seika's name, so he wondered if he was enjoying the army. Glai remembered his last humiliation and demanded a rematch. But at that moment, Aoife revealed he was the bully who had tormented her. Amyu stepped forward, offering to fight in Sika's place. When Glai mocked her, Sika said she was stronger than him and that he would only accept Glai's duel if he could first defeat Amyu. Excited, Glai agreed and told her to use a real sword while he would fight with wood. Confident that Amyu would win, Sika ordered the duel without magic. Amyu pressed Glai hard, driving him back, but when she moved to finish him, he feigned a spell and struck her sword away, claiming victory. When she called it cheating, he argued that tricks were fair in battle before turning to Sika and declared that he had heard of his tournament win and challenged him as a worthy opponent. At that moment, Princess Fiona arrived, wondering why her holy knight intended to fight in a duel. She thought the fight was meaningless and told Glai to give his meaningless life a true purpose. As Glai decided to withdraw from the fight, Sika wondered how she managed to force him to listen. Glai then introduced Princess Fiona to them, and the others were shocked to realize they were meeting the Holy Princess. While inside the mansion, Yuki began wondering who the Holy Princess really was, so Sika revealed that she was born from a priestess, and that her father was the Emperor. Inside a private room, the princess began saying that she had been waiting to meet them and thought Amyu looked exactly like the hero in the fairy tales. As she noticed Sika, she decided to thank him for showing up and said she wished he would become one of her knights, but Sika told her that her wishes were as worthless as her face. That night, Fiona wondered if Aoife was Sika's girlfriend, but she began choking harder than she does on Sika's meat. While having a dinner, Blaze praised Sika for saving Asteria because the news had spread across nations, while his mother urged him to write more often. Hearing her voice for the first time, Sika wondered why she sounded like a cancer patient after 50 years of smoking.
What did he say?
Later on, Amyu slipped into Seika's room, and he joked she shouldn't come just to duel with his sword. She then asked his plans after graduation, revealing she meant to return to adventuring. Seika recalled his promise in the dungeon, where she said he would join her, though he had no idea what to do and wondered if she would teach him. She agreed, looking forward to their first time together, before leaving him alone. Afterward, Yuki asked if he had forgotten he was only using Amyu to hide his true power, but Sika said he could never forget that. The next day, as they took Princess Fiona on a tour of the town, Glai told him that they would need to work together to protect her. Then, she decided to hold Seika's hand as she hurried into the market. Before long, she noticed a young couple and began wondering how she could draw closer to Sika. Amyu suggested they put their lives in danger, saying it creates a special bond. Thinking it was a great idea, Princess Fiona decided to lead them to a construction site, and as she suggested taking a closer look, she decided to draw Sika closer. Just then, a rope broke, and as the boards spilled toward them, Glee and Amyu cast a spell at the same time, protecting them from the boards. However, Princess Fiona was disappointed that Sika cast no spells, having expected to be saved by him instead. To make it up to her, Sika decided to buy Fiona a gift, and as he fixed her scarf in an alley, he summoned a quartz mirror to give her a good view of herself. She thought it was pretty, and told him that she loved his gift. The next day, Sika found Glai training and wondered if he was showing off as a holy knight. But Glai said the title wasn't as great as it sounded because it was a political move by the princess, chosen not for his skill, but as part of Princess Fiona's secret plan. After all, she was a politician, but she was also able to maneuver her way from nothing to becoming the favorite for the throne. When Sika wondered how this was possible, Glai told him that Princess Fiona could see the future, just like her mother, who was the Oracle Princess. For this reason, she had asked to see Amyu, knowing already that she was the hero. But as Glai realized that Sika had known already, he warned him to stay out of her way. Glai explained that she was working toward taking over the empire, but Sika thinks there was more to it. Later that day, when Princess Fiona began searching for Sika all over the mansion, he hid inside the bushes because he was already sick of her ugly face. As Amyu walked by, Sika suddenly popped out, nearly scaring her away. When she realized that he had been hiding from Princess Fiona, Amyu suggested that he spend the day with her instead, noticing how desperate Princess Fiona seemed to be in finding him. A few minutes later, Sika joined Princess Fiona on the balcony, where she asked him to play a game of chess. He accepted the challenge, but just before they began, Princess Fiona proposed a wager, where the loser would owe the winner a favor. Even though Sika knew he could not win, he accepted the bet anyway. As the match started, Princess Fiona asked him which chess piece he believed to be the strongest in the world. Sika told her that it was her, explaining that she had the power to control soldiers and every influential figure in the city while remaining in an unsuspecting position. Princess Fiona considered Sika's answer clever, but but she told him it was only close to the truth. She explained that the true mastermind would always remain hidden from sight. However, she believed the pawns were actually the most powerful pieces, since ordinary people, when united, could easily overthrow an empire. For this reason, she sought to gain the support of the people, believing it would secure her position as the first choice for the throne. At that moment, Princess Fiona confidently declared that she would win the game. Yet Seika already knew she had glimpsed the future, and realizing he had uncovered her ability, she assumed Glai must have told him. Seika, however, revealed that he had figured it out on his own. From the moment she interfered in his sparring match with Glai, he suspected she had foreseen Glai's defeat. Then, when she led him to the spot where the rope conveniently fell on them, it confirmed to him that she could predict the future. When Seika asked whether she intended to save the Empire using this power, Princess Fiona confessed that the future was not absolute, explaining that it could always change. Realizing he could not possibly win the match, Seika accepted defeat. At that moment, Princess Fiona confessed that she intended to save someone who was nearing death, though she hesitated to reveal their identity out of fear that doing so would alter the future. Deciding to become her ally, Seika offered his assistance. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the group of demons had annihilated an army of bandits. Their captain praised his men for growing stronger and commanded them to devour the corpses. With his appraisal spell, allowing him to see the strength of others, Zolmnem was confident that they could ensure their success in killing the hero. Back at the mansion, Seika and the others prepared to return to the academy. However, after traveling for several hours, Seika sensed something strange about the forest. Suddenly, a carriage exploded in front of them, but it was only a decoy Princess Fiona had set up. Seika immediately leapt onto the roof to scout for their attackers. At the same time, a group of men fled into position as bandits appeared on a cliff. At their leader's command, archers aimed at Princess Fiona's carriage, so Seika cast his magnetic spell, deflecting all arrows them with ease. The leader ordered his men to fire again, but the same spell repelled their shots just as easily. Staring at the display, the bandit leader wondered who Seika truly was. Realizing that most of the carriages were decoys, he ordered his men to focus their full magic on Princess Fiona's carriage. One of them cast a powerful spell, hurling a massive boulder at Seika, but it crumbled harmlessly against his barrier. As the bandit leader grew desperate, he ordered his men to charge head-on, but Glai emerged from the carriage, relieved that the archers had exhausted their arrows. With a shout, he rallied his men, and together they began to overpower the bandits. Princess Fiona then instructed Seika to capture them alive, so Seika summoned binding vines that coiled around the bandits, restraining them in that instant. A few minutes later, Seika asked Princess Fiona why she had chosen to spare their enemies, wondering if she planned to use them against her political rivals. Princess Fiona answered that her only goal was to uncover the men who had plotted her assassination. Seika argued that keeping them alive was dangerous, but Princess Fiona insisted she was safe now. She explained that the other bandits had already been annihilated and that the captured survivors would wait forever for a signal that would never arrive. Days later, the group reached the capital, but before heading inside, Princess Fiona assured Seika that she was on their side and told him never to forget her. At the same time, the group of demons advanced toward the capital. Zolmnem wondered whether they would truly manage to escape after killing the hero, yet his resolve never wavered. Determined to end her life for the sake of the demon race, he gazed at the distant city, convinced their future was about to begin. A few weeks later, the headmaster offered Seika a position on the student council. Yuki was worried that this might draw too much attention to him, but Seika ensures her that he was overly cautious, and perhaps he did not need anyone to take over his role as the strongest. Meanwhile, Zolmnem and his group arrived at their destination with the plan to find the hero at the Magic Academy to be eliminated immediately. Before entering the academy, Loni mentioned that he liked huge carrots penetrating his throat.
Stop it. Get some help.
But Mudarev told him, telling him to simply do his job. With that, the group began their mission and teleported to the school grounds. As they arrived, Ganis grew confused about the sudden appearance of fog, so he cast a fire spell, which revealed 2 students. He immediately attacked them with his flames, and at the same time, Loni and Pirisralia were also puzzled by the fog. Suddenly, they noticed someone running through it, so Loni summoned shadow wolves and waited for them to return with results. Elsewhere in the fog, Mudarev appeared, confused by the haze, when suddenly he was attacked and became excited. Mabel then appeared, quickly realizing that he was Mudarev and not just a mere ugly ogre. Mudarev declared his intention to eliminate Mabel. but she refused to die and immediately launched her attack. Motorev dodged her strikes and countered, but Mabel retaliated with full force, making him realize that she was indeed a worthy opponent. Suddenly, Mabel activated her magic, and Motorev realized too late that he had fallen into her trap. However, he only laughed, praising her effort before freeing himself. Motorev then launched a brutal counterattack with his massive club, and when the dust cleared, he noticed that Mabel had already vanished. Moments later, the demons began to sense that something was wrong. They discovered that all the figures they had encountered so far were Seika's Shikigami. Then Seika himself appeared, glaring down at them as if they were nothing more than insects, before acting like a god and declaring that he would give them divine punishment. Zolmnam was enraged and used his appraising skill, only to be left in shock by what he saw. Motorev stepped forward and challenged Seika to a duel, but before he could finish speaking, Seika instantly obliterated him with a laser beam spell. The demons were stunned, and Pirisralia swore vengeance for her fallen comrade. She unleashed her evil eye, activating Medusa's power in an attempt to turn Seika into stone. Seika mocked her, saying her spell was useless, and summoned Hakuta, massive white snake. Before she could turn him into stone, Pirisralia clutched her chest and died from the overwhelming aura of Hakuta. Seika explained that she never had a chance, so Loni summoned his monster. However, Hakuta unleashed its conqueror's haki for the second time, crushing the beast instantly. Desperate, Loni attempted to tame the Ayakashi, but he failed and was devoured like a crispy Castodon. Zolmnam was left dumbfounded as Seika dismissed Hakuta and returned it to the Shadow Realm. Gannis planned to stall for time, but Zolmnam refused and ordered his comrade to flee. Zolmnam declared that Seika was the Demon King, and that they stood no chance of victory. When Seika proclaimed that he would protect the hero, Zolmnam was stunned, unable to believe that the Demon King was fighting on the side of humans. Seika, growing impatient, began preparing a spell. Zolmnam urged Gannis to escape while he unleashed his strongest attack. Seika did not hold back, for he retaliated with a devastating wave of lava. Zolmnam was defeated on the spot, while Gannis barely managed to escape. As he retreated, he still could not believe that the Demon King stood with humanity. But before he could recover, Gannis felt a sudden slash across his body. From hundreds of kilometers away, Seika had eliminated him with his terrifying exorcist powers. Afterward, Mabel appeared, convinced that Motorev had belonged to the Demon Emissary Association and had been sent to assassinate her. Seika calmed her down, explaining that the enemy's true target had been Amyu. He assured her that he had already taken care of it and asked her to keep the matter a secret. Later that evening during dinner, Seika learned that Amyu was completely unaware that the demons had been after her. At that moment, a unit of soldiers under Marquis Greville appeared, announcing the arrest of Amyu and accusing her for the crime of slaying of a demon emissary. Amyu was shocked, and Seika could not believe that one of the demons they had slain was actually a demon emissary. The knights demanded Amyu's confession, but she knew nothing about the crime. Mabel and Yifa wanted to protect their friend, but Seika stopped them, telling Amyu that since she was innocent, nothing bad would happen to her. However, two knights grew angry at Seika for believing in her innocence, and Amyu was arrested. Seika went to the headmaster, asking for the reasons behind this and wanting to know who was truly responsible. The headmaster replied that the academy would take care of everything, so Seika believed her promise that she would try her best to save Amyu, but he also knew that if nothing was done soon, Amyu would be executed. Seika then reassured Aoife and Mabel that the school was already taking action, so they did not need to worry. Afterward, he summoned his dragon, preparing to rescue Amyu himself. As he was about to ride it, Yuki expressed her concern, warning him that he would draw too much attention and that his peaceful life would come to an end. She also reminded him that he might repeat the tragic fate of his previous life. Seika refused to stop the rescue mission to save his beloved side chick at any cost, so with that resolve, he set off toward the capital to find Amyu. Meanwhile, Amyu was frightened as she sat locked inside a prison cell, fearing she would never see her friends again. Tears began to fall when suddenly someone appeared before her. At the same time, Seika flew into the capital with his dragon and used his talismans to locate Amyu. He quickly tracked her down to the prison castle, but when Seika attempted to rescue her, the knights tried to kill him. One knight called for reinforcements, and soon Seika was bombarded with thousands of arrows. Demonstrating his overwhelming power, none of the arrows were able to pierce his defenses. He countered with a devastating attack using earth magic to crush the knights. As Seika made his way into the underground levels of the castle, more knights arrived to stop him. They rained him down fire arrows, but Seika retaliated with blue fire magic that engulfed them. Many were burned, yet they still refused to retreat. So Seika then summoned Kamaitachi that mercilessly cut them down. Together, Seika and Kamaitachi slaughtered countless knights in that instant, leaving them with no chance to even touch him. He roasted his enemies alive, and the soldiers perished without ever landing a blow. At last, Seika reached Amyu and freed her, but Amyu was furious with him, afraid that his reckless rescue would drag him into serious trouble. She refused to go with him, not wanting to put him in further danger, but Seika revealed that she was the hero, and if she did not flee with him, she would be executed. Suddenly, Glai appeared, and immediately after, the Princess Fiona chimed in. Seika demanded an explanation, asking why Amyu had been arrested and why Princess Fiona wanted her executed. Princess Fiona explained that their nation had once been small, and that the hero was regarded as a symbol of peace. From her words, Seika learned that the demons had targeted Amyu because they wanted to erase the cause of another war. He also discovered that Amyu could never grow as strong as the previous hero, since Seika was always at her side, protecting her from danger and preventing her from developing that same strength. Despite this, Seika refused to let Amyu die, so Princess Fiona then told him that she would ensure her safety and that Seika would not be arrested, provided he would leave immediately. Seika declined her offer, telling her that he could not be certain whether he could trust her. Princess Fiona was saddened by his answer, and Glai expressed disappointment in his younger brother. Accepting Seika's decision, Princess Fiona prepared a carriage to help Seika and Amyu escape. Amyu thanked her, and Seika learned that Fiona had given Amyu a blanket during her imprisonment and had even visited her constantly. Realizing this, Seika apologized for doubting her and made amends before parting ways. Afterward, Seika returned to the bodies of the knights whom he mass isekai. There, he revealed his true power by reviving them, and the two girls who witnessed it were left shocked by the sheer scale of Seika's spells. With Amyu by his side, Seika prepared to head back, knowing that after this day, they would have to leave the academy behind. Meanwhile, Princess Fiona spoke with a shadowy figure, and the creature asked her who Seika truly was. Princess Fiona revealed that he was the current demon king who protected the hero. Afterwards, Seika wrote a letter to his friends, and together they decided to drop out of school and embark on new adventures. Soon after, Amyu and Seika reunited with their friends in a nearby town, where they began their new life together as adventurers. Call upon the heavens, feel the power of a god, and watch this next video.